Hi Internet, welcome to the Greg Troyan YouTube channel, and welcome to Greg's 14 Adventures, a weekly vlog where I discuss my journey through Final Fantasy XIV as a first-time player. I beat A Realm Reborn back in 2022, and I'm finally finishing up the rest of the game. These vlogs are documenting my journey. If you like these videos and want to support their continued production, the best way to do that is to like the video, share it on a relevant social media site like Reddit, and leave a comment. Thanks, pal. Hey everybody, it's your buddy Greg, back with a Final Fantasy XIV weekly vlog. This was another week where I didn't have as much time to play. I know that seems like a running theme. Greg says that every week. Oh, he didn't have that much time to play this week. But I was out of town for a couple days for a wedding, and I also have my thing where I call my closest friends. I try to make sure I call my closest friends once a month, and that list is about like 8 people long. And so all of those phone calls happen to be scheduled this week on top of being out of town for the wedding. So that just made it a tighter week than usual. Oh, and I also had to record some Thin Lizzy Thursday. So yeah, just very, very busy week. But still got in some really great 14 playing. That this week's playing was pretty much exclusively, aside from my Summoner Jobin playing, 100%. No, not 100%, but I'd say like a good 90% based upon suggestions from the comments. One of the great things about doing these weekly vlogs and sharing my 14 journey with everyone is that I'm getting feedback on, oh, you know, you missed this part, or you should try this quest, or oh, I think you'd really like this. And because of that, I'm finding quest lines I might not have otherwise found, because I did some research on like Reddit and other YouTube videos about like, this is the 14 content you absolutely have to do. But, there's some stuff that I appreciate that maybe other people don't appreciate as much, and I'm finding through doing these videos, I'm learning so much more about the game and what it has to offer. And so when you guys are suggesting a cool questline and tell me like, oh, this questline has this in it, you might like it, it's leading to some cool stuff. So I'm very, very grateful for everyone in the comments for giving me suggestions, and even if not just giving me suggestions on what to play, giving me feedback on what they think I would enjoy. I'm really appreciative and grateful of that. And that is the main reason why I'm doing these vlogs, is because of the back and forth and the communication, the friends from the comment section who have then become friends on my Discord. So just once again, just really appreciate the feedback, the commentary, the suggestions. They're making this experience playing 14 much more enriching, so thank you so much. So like I said, I was out of town this weekend for a wedding. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but I've been living in Nashville, Tennessee since 2012. So I've been in Nashville for a while, and it's about 8 hours away, so I don't really make it back home often. It's just, I'm just very, very busy, and it's a long drive, and money's kind of tight, so it's always like a big hurdle to go back up to Cleveland, even for just like a couple days. But my cousin was getting married, so it was really great to go up and see, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, cousins, sister. A lot of us have moved to different places. Like I've got cousins in North Carolina and Jersey. My mom and sister, they're in Boston. My dad, he's in Cleveland, but he and my mom got divorced, so he wasn't at the wedding, but I made sure to take some time to see him. So it was a very in and out trip. We ended up staying at an Airbnb, not really in Cleveland proper. It's actually a few hours south of Cleveland, and the wedding was also south of Cleveland. But the reason that we stayed at an Airbnb is because we had to take our cats with us, because we have this one cat who's a little under 2 years old, very rambunctious, and he will get out of the house if you don't have things like very properly secured. And so like a cat sitter would not be able to handle this little rapscallion in terms of like making sure the door is properly secured and stuff. We have like this gate made out of foam board that we use to block between the front door and the rest of the house, just because we need like extra barriers set up just to keep him secure. And so we had to get an Airbnb that was cat safe, where like, no furniture they could wreck, and also like extra layers of doors to keep them from getting out. And so we ended up being like maybe like an hour away from the wedding venue, but it meant, less drive on the way back, which was nice. But the wedding itself was very beautiful. I always knew my cousin was into nerdy stuff, but I didn't realize like how peak the nerdiness was, where my cousin, he walked down the aisle to Dearly Beloved from Kingdom Hearts. He and his wife cut their wedding cake with the sword from The Legend of Zelda, which is the first time I've ever seen a sword cut a wedding cake. The ring bearer was an owl, so they had like an owl trainer. They had an owl like fly to the trainer to give him the rings. Instead of catching a bouquet, there was catching a stuffed cat, and then whoever caught the cat would have to either adopt a cat or donate to a cat shelter. So it was a very lovely ceremony, great seeing the family. Like I said, it was an in and out trip, but it was really beautiful. And the main reason I'm sharing it here is I figured the gamers in this audience, I think there are a couple gamers in this gaming vlog audience who would appreciate the dearly beloved and Legend of Zelda sword. I think you'd all appreciate that. So I'm not gonna dox my cousin, but congratulations to you and your beautiful bride. I hope you and your fur babies have just wishing you nothing but health and happiness. So the first thing I did with my 14 playing when I got back was I played the Monster of Bronze Lake side quest as suggested by Rattlegirl or Radlegirl in the comments. Let me know which of the two is correct, Rattlegirl or Radlegirl, option 1 or option 2. And it was basically a quest that takes place after 1.0, but before the Hildebrand 2.0 quest is when it canonically takes place. And it's basically a little quest that shows Godbert is grieving over what he thinks is the loss of his son, and that he might put on like a strong front, but is actually still like very hurting from missing his son and thinking that his son died in the 1.0 storyline. And so it's a very short quest. There's no proper cutscenes. It's all just like very MMO fetch quest dialogue type deal. But it did add a nice little layer of like bittersweetness and somberness to the 1.0 Hildebrand quest line, and it was solid. It was short and sweet. There wasn't much to it, but I was glad I did it. The vast majority of my playtime this week, however, were the Scholasticate quests, as suggested by the Koalas, another very cool person in the comment section. So once again, thank you, Rattlegirl, however you pronounce it. I feel so bad being like, I don't know how it's pronounced. I feel like an old person. So Rattlegirl and the Koalas, thank you so much for the suggestions. But yeah, the Scholasticate quest was one that I did hear about before the Koala suggested it, but they definitely gave me the push to just jump in and do it after describing the questline to me. The way that the questline was pitched was basically, this is a detective mystery questline focusing on Briardian, and so because he wasn't in the Hildebrand Heavensward questline, he got his own questline with the Scholasticate quests. And that's partially true, but it really feels like Briardian is more of like, he's not the main character, but he does have a very large role in the plot. And it is much more mystery-focused than, honestly, any of the Hildebrand quests that I played so far. It does actually feel like unraveling a mystery, a Final Fantasy detective mystery plot, which isn't really something that the series does super often, but anytime they do it, I'm really into it. Like in Final Fantasy XI, in the Wings of the Goddess Pastak storyline, that's also a detective mystery plot, and that's really cool. But this is sort of like a detective mystery plot meets Harry Potter, meets your standard JRPG, we are tearing down the structure of this religious institution. So the quest begins with meeting with a merchant named Mate, who forgot what book he was supposed to sell to the Scholasticate. And so the merchant asks us to check and see what book is out of stock, which volume of the Holy Scriptures that they're missing, and it turns out that it's volume 11, which is the volume that preaches equality between all people, and it's a very anti-hierarchy text. And so after figuring out which volume is out of stock, Matt asks us to help students that are being harassed by commoners. So I guess I should explain what the Scholasticate is. The Scholasticate is basically a institution of higher learning for members of the Ishgardian Church. And so graduates from the Scholasticate become scholars, historians, artists, and members of the clergy, perhaps teaching others, high government officials. It's an institution of higher learning where you learn all about the scriptures to better enrich Ishgardian society. But since we have essentially proved that the religion and foundations of Ishgard are a lie, the commoners are upset with the institution and are harassing the students. And so, like I said, the merchant was asking us to help the students being harassed by commoners, and so we go to try to help a couple of students, but some street urchins steal a book from them. We go to confront the street urchins, one of whom is named Ben, who is at the same orphanage as the two students, Theo and Lay. And apparently a giant rift has grown between the three of them since Theo and Lay ended up at the Scholasticate, but Ben ended up staying in the slums. And so Ben threatens to burn the book if Theo and Lito get closer and try to reclaim it. But Lay then shows up, ignores the warning, and tries to get the book, but Ben drops the book in the flames, and it gets badly burned. They manage to somewhat salvage the book, And it's a very important book to Theo. It's basically a book of children's stories that a preacher that took them in when they were kids gave to Theo. And so even though it's children's stories, he really values it because of the kindness of the person who gave him the book and the inspirational stories contained within. So after dealing with all of those shenanigans, we get invited to meet the headmistress of the Scholasticate, but she's not in at the time, and so we end up meeting with Bruvagnon, the deputy headmaster. The deputy headmaster informs us that a statue head has been stolen recently, and they're trying to figure out who is behind the theft. But then Briar Dean arrives and reveals that he's Bruvagnon's nephew, here to solve the case of the missing statue head, and asks Lito to be his associate in solving the mystery. So we start asking around and ask the students to see if they know anything suspicious about the statue head, and Theo claims that he was responsible for keeping the head safe and takes full responsibility, and that the people in the broom had nothing to do with it and stop asking him questions. And so we think that's pretty sus, and we go to the broom and reveal that the head is in a nearby crate, and that Ben stole the head out of frustration with the church's lies being revealed. And as we're about to confront Ben, he runs off and we're able to retrieve the head. Theo feels conflicted about remaining in the church despite all the lies of the church being revealed, but decides he has the goal of uncorrupting the church and revealing the truth of the scriptures, arguing that if man corrupted the scriptures, then it will be up to man to reveal the truth and get rid of the distortion. And so that is a very interesting philosophical take, and I really like the questions that this questline is posing. I mean, if you take a look at, like, let's say, American Christianity, for example, and what a complete bastardization it is in terms of theology based upon the actual text of the Bible, the goal of, like, actually getting back to the roots of what the texts say and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying, there is something of value here, let's see what we can salvage to make a more just society based upon these core foundational principles. I do think that is something worthy to explore, and it also, begs the question, which I think this questline does address, whether or not that process is worth it at all when the foundation is revealed to be a lie. So let's say that you grow up Christian, and then maybe you get proof that, like, atheism is real or something like that. Is it still worthwhile to use the Bible as a foundational text? Is sort of the question that this questline is asking. And for me, if, like, we have verifiable proof that, like, it is, like, you can disprove it, I would, like in Final Fantasy XIV's case, like, we prove that no, these texts are bunk. I would say that this entire institution should just be torn down, and that society does need a massive reorganization, and I don't know what place this institution has in it. Sometimes institutions just need to be torn down. However, there is something to be said about, like, transitioning and reforming an institution and allowing an institution to stay in place because there is some kind of stability. And so this questline is asking the question, is this institution worth keeping, or is it so corrupt that it needs to be destroyed? The question, like, do you abolish ICE or do you reform ICE? The answer in that case is you abolish ICE. The answer is often abolish, but not always. Some institutions are better to keep in place because in a vacuum, if you're missing that institution, the hole in its place is worse than the institution being there. So again, some really great questions being posed by this questline, like a lot of food for thought, and a lot of that makes you reflect upon society, your relationship with religion, society's relationship with religion, relationships with higher learning. And I think the writing is very good because it doesn't really land on an answer, but more just poses a lot of questions for you. And I think that's very refreshing, the way that this questline works in terms of writing. So we get back to the Scholasticate, and two elitist students, Arcombaddon and Labrassior, bully Theo and take his burned book from him. Basically just to showcase their power, just like, oh, we're so cool, we can bully somebody with glasses. And this is the first real taste of the elitism within the Scholasticate, because Arcombaddon and Labrassior are from noble families, while Theo and Lay are commoners who basically, got sponsored to go. They got the scholarships, essentially. They're the poor kids with the scholarships, and the two prefects are basically rich kids from nice families. But a girl named Blase returns the book to Theo, and it's pretty clear that she has a crush on him. And I'm just going to say it now because it's on my mind, and I don't know if it'll fit in my notes very well later, but it turns out that she is Briar Dean's sister. so that's revealed a bit later, but I'm just saying it now. But anyway, Ravagnan explains to Leto that those who strive for a favorable position within the Holy See must first graduate from the Scholasticate with the highest marks, as one of the Trinity, or the 3 top seats which receive a formal endorsement. However, due to recent revelations regarding Ishgard's history, basically that, their history was founded on a complete lie, both the curriculum and the traditional means of assessment are being reevaluated. And so they're just like, yeah, we don't know how to judge people because they have to take like a history test or a test in the scriptures when we're not sure like what the actual proper history is and what the scriptures even mean. Like, how can we judge someone on how well they know the scriptures if we don't know if all the scriptures are good? And what is our theology now? Like, what do we even stand for? And so without a clear path to the Trinity, the students have become disillusioned and angry because they don't know how they're going to be graded. It's kind of like at my job right now, they combine my position with a position lower than mine. And so because those are very different workflows, like they haven't really told us how we're being graded. And so it's just like, yeah, just kind of work and we'll tell you if you're doing good or if you're not. And I'm just like, oh, okay, but like, what are my metrics? I used to have very clear metrics like work 12 accounts per hour. And that was what you need. And now it's just like, yeah, just sort of figure it out. Like, okay, so what's my metrics? I don't know. So I understand the frustration very much with that. I do like a clear expectations. And so we finally meet with headmistress Elviane, who is supposedly old school and very conservative, and she explains that the Scholasticate didn't know they were spreading falsehoods about history and faith, but they did play a part in it, even if unintentionally. And so they're like, yeah, our bad with that. Again, I'm really loving this questline. It's like diving into the immediate aftermath of, like, almost like in Final Fantasy X, when everyone's like, oh, so Yevon's told a lie. And then the church been like, so what do we do now? Like, because we kind of run everything. And so Elvin and the others talk about how they need to figure out a new evaluation system for graduating students and figure out how we're going to grade them. And they're saying like, yeah, it's probably just going to be vibes, which is great. That's how every student wants to be graded. Like, does the teacher vibe with me? But we're tasked with investigating to make sure no students try to cheat, which, cheat on what, but whatever. You see if make sure no students try to cheat. And we end up meeting with Archambaddon and Labrassier, who chastise Leto for uprooting society by revealing the church's lies. They're like, hey man, societies are built upon lies. Why you gotta wreck ours? And then Archambaddon says that there are students who are trying to recruit others to return to the school. So we're like, all right, well, let's check and see what's going on with that. And we meet a student named Kramervar, who is apparently like a, very flirtatious guy, flirting with other girls, trying to convince them to return to school, which, that is a weird use of your flirting powers. Like, hey, baby, come back to the Catholic school with me. But it looks like his charms are working and he's having some success. Lee and Theo are trying to do the same, but with less luck, they're nowhere near as charming. They're really hoping to get the Trinity so that they can influence the direction of the church to focus on the scriptures that focus on equality, as opposed to the scriptures that focus on hierarchy. Because Volume 11 is like, all men are created equal type deal. And they're like, yeah, that's the scripture we want to focus on. And if we get the Trinity, then we'll get into a high position in the church. And then we can influence the doctrine going forward. And so we got to make sure that we get the Trinity. So we go back to the school and find the results of who was able to bring back the most students, which I guess that was a competition. And it was Archambaddon. Ulla, the girl that Kramerva thought that he recruited, supposedly withdrew and decided not to return to school. She was focused on the doctrines from the 11th volume that preached equality as well, which the bullies don't like at all, and Kramerva feels they bullied and pressured her to leave because of the views she has on the doctrine. Briardine thinks it's sus that the girl withdrew from school without explanation, and so we decide to investigate and talk with Saturna, a teacher priest who believes in the equality doctrine and wants Theo and Lee to succeed in the Trinity, but suggests that they get allies, so they seek out Kramerva. But Lee doesn't want to deal with a highborn and doesn't like that Kramerva is lazy and a flirt, so he's like, man, I don't want to work with this guy. I'm out. And so we find Kramerva held at knife point from a girl that he was flirting with, and apparently the girl seeks revenge against his house, because his high house, exploited commoners during times of war and sent many commoners to their deaths, and so he has this history of shame in his house. Paying for the sins of the father, essentially. But Theo begs the would-be kidnapper not to take his life and instead offers himself as a hostage until Kramerva can bring his family fortune to pay for his life. And so the girl with the knife agrees, and we grab Kramerva's fortune, give the money to the girl, and save Theo. And then Theo and Kramerva share some backstories and bond over just, being human, or elven in this case, and just having like a genuine heart-to-heart about wanting to make the world a better place. And the two are like, yeah, we're allies. Let's do this. Let's work together. And this is the mid-video call to action. This is the part of the video where I ask you to please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos from me. And yeah, make sure you comment, because this video is largely because of the comment section. I got comments saying, hey, these quests are cool, you should do them, and that's what this vlog is basically about. So if you think there's cool stuff in 14 I should do, definitely let me know. Or if you just want to comment on the stuff that I'm doing and your thoughts on my thoughts. I mean, this quest line, there's a lot we could dive into with it. So, definitely let me know. Get into your theology in the comments down below. And feel free to join the Discord and continue chatting with me there. Yeah, and make sure you stick around and watch these videos, because I've got new vlogs coming out every week. Alright, mid-video call to action over. So we report to Briar Dean, who said he's coming up on dead ends and finding Ulla, and is finding it really suspicious that she disappeared. And so we go and ask other students about Ulla, but we just keep coming up on dead ends. Sarna says that Theo and Lay have gone off to find Ulla, and so we go and find Theo and Lay at the grave of their former master, who helped them join the Scholasticate and rescue them from poverty. And they think it's divine providence that Leto came, as they were hoping to find some kind of sign from above of like what they should do, and please guide us to Ulla and help us find her. And then Leto shows up, and they're like, yeah, this is it. Leto's got to be that sign from above. And so we go back to school, and we hear rumors that Arkambaden arranged for Ulla's kidnapping. That's what the kids on the street are saying. Well, not the kids on the street, because we don't talk to the street urchins. No, you're talking to the kids in the classrooms. And so Briar Dean and Leto think that the rumors are being spread to bring about division, and that Arkambaden isn't actually responsible for Ulla's disappearance. But we can never be too sure, and we need to investigate. So we talk with Labrassior, who says he thinks that his friend is being framed because he found volume 11 of the scriptures in his room. He thinks that someone must have planted it there to make it seem like he kidnapped Ulla, because Ulla, the book was missing, and so where's volume 11? Who has it? Oh, Ulla has it. She was the one who checked it out, but why can't we find it? And then oh, she's missing, but then Arkambaden, someone who's really against the teachings of volume 11, has the book in his room. Dun dun dun, suspicious, or planted evidence. And so we do a whole lot of investigating, asking around town, gathering clues, talking with locals, trying to figure out what's going on. And we're getting help from everybody. Theo is helping, Lee is helping, Kramerva is helping, Blase is helping because she really wants to impress Theo because of her crush on him. And Blase ends up taking extremely meticulous notes of everyone she talked to. Extremely meticulous. Way too meticulous. At least that's what we might think initially. But we give Blase's notes to Briar Dean, who, with all of our other clues, figures out which merchant is selling to our primary suspect, a man from the slums with a scar on his face, who recently came into money and had become a merchant himself. And so we follow the man with the scar and confront him to rescue Ulla. And after we beat them, the kidnappers are taken in by the cops and interrogated, but it's revealed that the man with the scar and his associate don't know who their benefactor was and who gave them the order to kidnap Ulla, as their benefactor wore a heavy cloak that disguised them, and they're not sure whether or not their benefactor is a man or a woman. But back at school, even though Ulla has been safely rescued, the student body is convinced that Arkambaden is the cause of all this and want him expelled. Theo sticks up for Arkambaden, saying that there's no evidence to expel him for a crime that he didn't commit, but a petition to have him expelled is still made because the students are like, yeah, even if he didn't do this, we still think that he is an asshole and should be expelled anyway because he is just a total dick to everybody and lords over everyone because his family comes from money and nobody likes him. He's a jerk, so whatever. We'll say we want him expelled because we think he's a kidnapper, but the dude is an asshole, so screw him. Which I do think is really, really hilarious. I think that's just real talk, actually funny. And so we go and meet with Saturna, and so we go to him for advice, and he says that he got the petition for the students, and he thinks that Arkambaden is innocent, but also thinks that he's an asshole, and so he's going to submit the petition to the higher-ups and endorse it because he thinks that it's better to get this asshole out of there and then just have the good students left who can focus on the teachings about equality and being nice to people. which, real talk, like, okay, there's like a bit of shadiness in the game of politics, and if this is the question, do the ends justify the means? And at this point in the story, whether or not Arkham Bottom is innocent, like, he is an asshole, and he is actively preaching against equality and being nice to people. It's like saying, nope, rigid hierarchy, the rich should have the power, and you should not question the rich having power. It's like, all the students who want him expelled, and just like, yeah, let's just not deal with him and then focus on the teachings we want to do at a time when you're doing Reformation. Honestly, I'm on the side of everyone who thinks the dude should be expelled. Like, I know it's like, oh, but the truth needs to prevail. But like, when it comes to like what is going to be better for society, like this rich asshole continuing to lord over people. The storyline only works because, spoilers, Arkham Bottom later has a change of heart. But if Arkham Bottom just continues to remain an asshole, yeah, you would need to find a way to like expel him from power. Maybe not expel him from the school, but like limit his power. In the same way it's like in Congress, like, oh, we got to find a way to work with the Republicans. Like, no, you need to just get more power. Like, certain people just can't be worked with. You just have to have more power than them. And that's kind of how it feels with the Arkham Bottom situation, which, again, this situation only works is because he has his change of heart later and then can be worked with. But if he stays hardline in his beliefs that he has at this point in the story, then yeah, actually you should have taken advantage of this opportunity. But anyway, we go meet with Arkham Bottom and offer to help prove his innocence, but he's not interested in our help and is a total asshole to us, as to be expected. And so we gather more clues and find letters that have been sent to all the students, well, not all the students, but most of the students, to get them to turn on Arkham Bottom, and notice that they all mentioned that Volume 11 was found in his room. But Ulla didn't have the book on her when she was kidnapped, and we know after she went missing, the book was gone. So it looks like Arkham Bottom is being framed, or is just casually leaving evidence that would implicate him in his room. So he's either really sloppy or being framed, but we're leaning towards the being framed option. And so we meet with Briar Dean to look over all of the evidence, and Briar Dean thinks he solved the case. And I had a hunch on what the solution to the mystery was, and I actually guessed it right, because there were basically three suspects: Arkham Bottom, Labrassier, and Saturnaw, because they were the only people who had the keys to all the rooms. The prefix and the higher priest. They were the only ones with the keys. So it had to be one or multiple of the three of them. And I guessed right. So we meet with the two prefects and talk about how Leto is the warrior of light, and because he has the echo, he has the ability to see into the past. So we'll be able to prove Arkham Bottom's innocence because Leto knows who actually did the crime. The bluff ends up working, and Labrassier reveals his crimes and admits that he's always hated the way that Arkham Bottom's house treated his, and after the reveal that their society of hierarchy was built upon a lie, he plotted his revenge against Arkham Bottom, who, even though they were like childhood friends and spent their whole lives together, he has always secretly resented because he was just such an asshole. But then we reveal that Leto can't control the echo, and that we basically just lied to them to get the confession. So we're like, yeah, we were bluffing. But Arkham Bottom is shocked that his childhood best friend has hated him for so many years, and realizes he is woefully out of touch and is not fit to lead society if he can't see something right in front of him. But Theo encourages the equality doctrine once again, and encourages him to forgive his friend, despite his friend, trying to expel him and, being involved in a kidnapping plot. Like, forgiveness is really good. Like, forgiveness for... I don't know. That's very complicated. Once kidnapping is involved, how much forgiving you do. It's like you got to do a little bit of time for that. But anyway, we take Labrassier to confess to the Scholasticate, to the higher ups. But Saturnaw says that this confession by Labrassier is probably coerced, and that they might need to temporarily shut down the school as they figure things out and completely reform the institution. But Briar comes in and says that he considers this statement from Saturnaw to be a confession. Briar reveals that Saturnaw is not a real priest at all, and that all of his documents are forged. He has no teaching certificate. He's actually a watchman of a group called the Expurgators, which is a secret division of Isgard tasked with staying in the shadows of society and orally keeping the deepest, darkest secrets of Isgard's true history that they dare not write down, because if those were written down, they could potentially be revealed to the public. And so only commoners become Expurgators, so they are taken into the Scholasticate and educated. And then after their education, they're basically taken to a secret dungeon where they're orally given the true history of Ishgard, and they just have to orally give that history to the higher-ups, like the head priests and stuff. They're supposed to give it, they're supposed to deliver that oral history, and the watchmen are supposed to watch over them in their jail cells just to make sure they don't get out. But Saruman became disgusted with the system after a friend of his committed, and so Saruman joined the Scholasticate to try to shut it down so they would stop sending students from the school to take part in this twisted system. Elvain suggests closing down the Scholasticate completely, but Theo and Archibald say they should keep the school open and work towards preaching equality, reforming the bad aspects of their Scholasticate, like not kidnapping poor people and such, and being open and honest. Again, there's the question like, how corrupt is an institution, and should it just be completely demolished? Should the Catholic Church as an institution continue to exist despite the many atrocities that the church has committed and the different cover-ups the church has done? I think there is a value in faith and community, and I think that actually the Catholic Church in recent years has actually leaned more towards the positive with the last few popes. But at a certain point, when is an institution beyond saving? Like if your institution is secretly kidnapping poor people and making them live in dark jail cells for their entire lives just to reveal like, hey, we're going to tell the king of our country, hey, here's all the genocides we committed, but don't tell anybody else. Like, yes, you do teach some people how to be painters, but like, should this institution continue to exist is, I think, a fair question. And even though Saruman is the villain, and even though Arkham Bottom does eventually change, should this institution exist? I think it's written in a way where they're saying this institution should exist because this is an MMO and we gotta have some status quo and not get rid of this building. But on the other hand, I think there's a fair argument to be made that no, this institution should be abolished. The higher learning aspect is good, but are these dark secrets so bad that this place should be torn from the ground? But I mean, if reformation is possible, there is something to be said about the value of institutions. When you look at the current administration just destroying institutions because like, oh, they're not efficient, so we're going to destroy them. Not having the institution at all is often worse. So there is a great debate to be had here. Again, this storyline gives a lot of food for thought. It's really great. But again, the reason that this happy ending works is only because Arkham Bottom does decide to change and not be an asshole. If he continued his same hierarchical stance, that would make this a much muddier ending. But because like, no, I'm going to be nice to people now, and I think equality is good, that's the only reason this works. But anyway, we say our goodbyes, and Briardian talks about going to Ulda and the girl he left in Ulda, who is currently rotting in a prison cell. And that pretty much wraps up the quest. Got some cool new clothes from the quest, including some glasses and a robe that looks really sick. And I was really happy with it. I'm surprised that more 14 fans don't talk about this quest line. I mean, there's not much gameplay in it, but there's more gameplay in this quest line than there is actually in the Hildebrand Heavensward quest line, which is kind of shocking. And the rewards are just like, all right, you got like some glasses and you got a cool robe. So they're not like amazing rewards, and there's not much gameplay, but I think that the outfit is cool, and I think the story is really engaging. So I'm very happy with this quest line. It offered lots of good. It made the player, if they're a reflective person, ask lots of good questions about the importance of institutions and the value of them, which, I'm kind of getting why this questline maybe isn't as talked about as much, because this one is like purely you're here for the story and you're a deep thinker and you want to think about the value of institutions and organized religion and the impacts of society. Like that's what this questline is, and it's not like flashy combat or giant big set pieces. This is like a, not to be reductive, but like a thinking man or woman's quest line. And I think that a lot of gamers are very surface level in their interpretation of media. And so they don't like dive into the extra layer of like, what are the implications of this quest line for the society in which I live in? they only look as like, what does it mean within the context of the work, as opposed to like, what does this say about my life and society? Because they're like, oh, I don't want politics infused in my video games, where this is very much a very political storyline, and it gives a lot to think about, but also doesn't land on an answer definitively, I feel. And I think that is why it works so well, because it really is just forcing you to reflect and think and consider. And that combined with the like solving the mystery aspect of it, this is a very cerebral plot line, but I thought it was excellent. I really loved it. But yeah, that was most of my playing this week. There were a couple other things worth mentioning. I did get the Cloud Advent Children outfit for Lito and Gredtorian, which is pretty sick. Got that in my Moogle mailbox. Did a few duties while waiting for Summoner Jobin to log in. And also worked on my hunting log a little bit, because one of the duties, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that duty before Jobin logs in. So I said, oh, I'll just work on the hunting log, and came across a notorious monster called Marberry, which looked like a Black Maid's version of a Tonberry. Just came across it just out in the wild and fought it. And so that was pretty fun just to see that unexpectedly. And I got a couple Twin Adder promotions, which was nice. And then once Summoner Jobin logged in, we continued the Hildebrand questline. He's super excited that we're getting to see Ultros. We're both fans of 6, but we're not fanboys of 6. And so, because we don't think 6 is the best game in the series, people think that we hate 6, but we actually both like 6 a lot. And both of us are big Ultros fans. So I'm excited to see Ultros again. And he was just tickled pink that Ultros was in the questline. And it's just excited to see where the rest of the Hildebrand questline goes. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the quest suggestions. They, turned out to be really excellent and basically filled up the vlog this week. So if you have any other quest suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. And I think that we could have a really interesting discussion about this questline, because there is so much to dive into. I think this questline really gives you a lot to think about. So yeah, let's talk about it. And you can feel free to comment here and also join the Discord and talk with me there. Appreciate you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.